Grim discoveries raising new questions about the safety of climbers on Mount Everest. 4 bodies were found yesterday inside a tent at a camp near the summit. Camp 4 is nearly 3,000 feet from the top of the world's highest mountain. American doctor Roland Yearwood is among 4 other climbers who died last weekend. This year's death toll on the mountain has risen to 10.
Everest expedition started as a journey into the unknown, the most daring adventure one could take to the highest peak on Earth, where few had ever been. In recent years, it has turned into a tourist attraction, inviting only the ones who can afford the steep price tag. For this, many have perished, the weak, the elderly, doesn't matter. All that matters is the money one is willing to spend and the life one is willing to risk. Not only that of their own, but that of others. Sherpas have spoken out against this unethical practice, but money rules all. The guide services and Nepali government bear most of the responsibility, but responsible is the last thing they've been.
And joining me now is someone who argues that there are too many people at one time on the mountain these days. He is the son of the late Tenzing Norgay, the first Sherpa to reach Everest summit, along with Sir Edmund Hillary. He is trek guide and author Gemling Tenzing Norgay, who joins me now from Darjeeling in India. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. It has been 66 years since your father first made that pioneering first ever summit. This Everest Day is meant to celebrate that, but it also comes during a time of quite a number of deaths. What is to blame for this spike of deaths on Everest this year?
Well, it's very sad and disturbing to hear, 11 people died on Everest this year, and not because of the weather, but because of the traffic jams. And that's something you never hear, on a mountain like Everest or any other mountains. Traffic jams happen in the city, in New York City, or, waiting in line, restaurants, long queues, but this is not thought about at all, and it's very disturbing and shocking. And I hope there are ways that this can be prevented actually by the government of Nepal by issuing, less permits or permits to able climbers who are able to get recommendation or reference from the origin of country, from the alpine clubs of different countries, stating that these people are fit to climb the mountain.
Yeah, you're saying that the cause of these deaths, it's not the weather, it's the overcrowding. And of course, the world has seen the photograph that's gone viral of the queue, the crowds at the very peak of the summit of Mount Everest. When you have overcrowding like that, does that risk the lives of everyone, even the most experienced mountaineers, even the most experienced Sherpas?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when you have a traffic jam, you are locked up. So whether you're the best climber in the world or the slowest climber in the world, you're stuck in that jam. And it doesn't matter, how experienced you are. So I think there needs to be some crowd management. The tour operators and the base camp need to work on a schedule, sending different groups at different times. Because there's only a few days, where the window of opportunity to get to the summit clears up. Yeah. And in one season, you might get 5 or 6 days of those spread out within 2 weeks and towards the end of May.
Now, something needs to change. As you noted just a moment ago, government officials in Nepal, they are discussing the issue. They say that they're looking at changing requirements for issuing permits. Is that the solution?
Well, yes, that is a beginning. It's at least the government is thinking about doing something about it. And we talked about this with the Nepalese government in 1996 when one of the worst disasters in the mountain's history occurred. We were climbing and making the IMAX film. And nine climbers lost their lives in one night because of the storm, and there were too many climbers on the mountain. And the government said that they will change the policy on the number of permits they issue And the following year, nothing changed. They issued even more permits. So I hope this time the government will take steps and measures to make sure that, able climbers, climbing people who have climbing experience, take a bite, get the reference letters from different alpine clubs from the different countries, and give it to those who, actually are fit enough to climb this mountain.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that because the issue of permits right now is being talked about restricting the numbers, the quantity. But what about the quality? Your thoughts on the mountaineers today. Has their ability, has their attitude changed since your father, Tenzing Norgay, first climbed Everest?
Well, yes, of course it has over the 66 years now. Because when my father and Hillary, when they climbed Everest, they were the pioneers, they were explorers. They paved the way for us. And they showed us the way. He was one of the first people to open the route on this mountain in 1952 when he went with the Swiss. And today, nowadays it's become more of a bucket list for people, CEOs of different companies, people who have money. They want to tick it up the bucket list saying, oh, all right, well, 8,000 people have climbed Everest so far. Maybe I have a chance. And if I give extra money, to the guiding companies, I'll get a heater, I'll get computers, I'll get extra Sherpas. They'll carry the oxygen for me. They'll do all the work for me. And so it's become almost like a joke, to climb this mountain these days.
Yeah. As you said, it's turned into something to check off the bucket list. You have scaled Mount Everest, which is no easy task. What is your message to people out there who want to achieve what you did, what your father did to conquer Mount Everest?
See, I think the most important thing, anything you do in life, is do it because you're passionate about it. Do it because you love doing it. Otherwise, you should not be that at all. Because if you have no experience, you come on a mountain like this, learning to put on your crampons, for the first time, walking on ladders for the first time. You risk your life firstly, and then you risk the lives of the team members. And finally, if anything happens to you on the mountain, you risk the lives of 10 or 20 Sherpas trying to bring your body down or bring you down when you're injured, which is not fair. And I think it's very selfish to do that. So learn, practice, take your time, and then when you're finally ready, then come, and the mountain's always there for you.
Sherpa, a Nepali ethnic group that lives in the shadows of the Himalayas, who've evolved over thousands of years to live at high altitude, making them superhuman mountaineers, extremely efficient at producing energy when oxygen is scarce. Life at such high altitudes remains inhospitable for most of us. They risk their life a couple months of every year, guiding and rescuing countless tourists up and down the mountain, like the courageous rescue of this Indian lady who would have been left to die otherwise. These moments define who they are and what they believe in, and it's safe to say they are real-life heroes.
8 hours in the snow, me and my Sherpa.
Yeah.
And he took care of me a lot.
You okay? You okay?
When I was thinking, he told me that remember your daughter.
Yeah.
And he just wake me up. Ma'am,
Saved your life.
Yeah, he saved my life.
Your life.
Very unusual seeing our team so exhausted. You could see Mingma's eyes. There was nothing left. I've never seen Sherpas so exhausted.
Everybody says I climbed Everest. Wrong. It is Sherpas who climb. It is Sherpas who take us to the
The
Everest.
Sherpas are honestly the greatest human beings on the planet. And without it, there would be no summits
Yeah.
and a lot more deaths. We are all grateful.
Unfortunately, hundreds haven't been able to be rescued, and the number climbs each and every year. Their frozen bodies left sculpted into the mountain. The Sherpa is required to stay with his tourist until they are rescued or no longer savable, forced to watch the life drain from their frostbit body as they too start to become hypothermic. Unfortunately, hypothermia isn't the only way Everest will claim life.
Nepal lies in the Himalayas, dominated by the world's tallest mountain, Mount Everest. The quake sent a mountain of ice and snow directly onto the base camp there, where hundreds had gathered in preparation for the climb to the summit. Elizabeth Palmer has that part of the story.
German climber Joost Kobusch's camera caught the moment the earthquake struck.
The ground is shaking. Oh, oh!
Then, like an explosion, a huge avalanche roared toward the camp. He and his friends dove into their tent, panting with fear in the thin air. When they crawled out a minute later, tons of rock and snow had crushed large parts of the camp, injuring both foreign climbers and Nepali guides.
On the brutal cold day of April 25, 2015, a devastating 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal and the surrounding countries, triggering an avalanche on Everest, killing at least 22 people, the deadliest disaster the mountain has ever seen. Between 1 and 200 climbers were left stranded, so the largest high-altitude rescue was underway. Survivors struggled in the chaotic conditions to care for the stranded and wounded. The Indian Army had been on an expedition to clean the mountain of debris. They just didn't expect it to be the debris that it had become. Tents they'd called home pummeled to the ground, bodies strewn about, laying on the wet and frigid ground, the ice painted red. There had been around 1,000 people on base camp when the avalanche hit, and an additional couple hundred at the higher camps along the route to the summit. 3 helicopters flew non-stop, evacuating hundreds of mountaineers in an unprecedented rescue mission. In total, around 9,000 people perished and 16,000 injured amidst the devastation. The region is still rebuilding from the destruction left in its wake.